What's up, everybody? We are back. Midjourney Fast Hours podcast. It's Friday. It's the day after Halloween. As far as this recording goes, you guys probably won't see this for another week. We're just coming off the rebound for that. We were just catching up, Rory and I, on the kids' Halloween festivities and what went into that and how long that actually lasted, because it didn't last long at all. For me, my kids, I think we made it to 8 houses, maybe six or seven. And half the houses we had the ghost costumes on for. By house number 4, we were done with that. We were too hot and sweaty because it was hot down here in Atlanta. And then it was like we hit 3 more houses up with the caveat of, hey, like, it's hot out here. We already took off the ghost costumes. We still want candy, kind of thing. And then the kids were done, man. They were whining. They were ready to go home. So
It's awesome. I remember because I grew up in New Jersey. Typically around here, a little chilly when October 31st comes around. When I went to school in South Carolina, like, my whole costume game had to change because it was like, you get the days where it's like 85 on Halloween. I'm like, this is a totally different ball game. You can't wear, like these polyester, like, or that, or any, one time, I don't know, have you ever seen the movie Dude, Where's My Car?
What? Come on, bro.
All right, good.
Of course.
Just had to check.
Of course.
I asked someone the other day. They had not seen
classic.
it.
Yeah.
But we were Zoltan. So we were the people in the bubble wrap jumpsuits, and like that was the hottest I probably lost like 6 pounds that day. Just walking around in plastic wrap, in plastic bubble wrap. So I was just sweating my ass off. But
Rory,
regardless,
one of my first internships, I worked for the St. Louis Cardinals AA team.
Okay. Please tell me you were a mascot.
It was an internship, so the only way you could make money is if you dressed up as the mascot.
Yes.
And you would have to, like, you could sign up for, like, to do little kids' birthday parties or, like, public events. It was the only way you made money. And, bro, I mean, in college.
It's hot, man.
You got to take a little bit of extra cash where you can get it, bro. So I remember doing this kid's birthday party, and it was just, man, I walked in, changed into the costume. And then I'm sitting, like, I'm in this basement with like an 8-foot ceiling, and the head, of the costume is just scraping the top. So that's one memory. And there's actually way more to that story. It's probably not appropriate for this particular podcast, maybe a Midjourney After Dark.
All right.
But then there was like, the heat of the summer. Baseball season's mostly in the summer. And we had like the AA All-Star game that year. And so we had to wear the mascot uniform for like it was like an all-day event. So I think it was like 6 or 7 hours. You had like a break at lunch. And I remember like we did it with a bunch of us because the other teams flew in their mascot uniforms for the event. And so all of us interns had to like take on different teams' mascots.
Ooh.
We weighed ourselves afterwards. We all lost 12 to 15 pounds in a single day just from wearing that damn suit, bro.
Did you have the ice vest?
I don't know what an ice vest is, but
Ooh.
definitely wasn't aware that was a thing, if it was a thing back then.
I used to have to do one of the little mascot things when I was in mixed martial arts. We had like, try to attract kids every once in a while. I had to dress up as the tiger. Yep.
You did.
But like, it was the summer. New Jersey, like, if people don't know this if you're listening from around the world. New Jersey is right outside of New York, and you'd think it wouldn't get as hot. It gets as hot as South Carolina, Georgia, the southern parts of the U.S. in the summer. It gets to be 97, 98 degrees, probably over 30 in Celsius.
I was going to say, you're not going to do the conversion, are you?
I was going to try because it's, plus the humidity. And it's just like, they gave me an ice vest because they were concerned I was going to die. They were like, you can't do this for 8 hours. I was like, I'm fine. I'm doing it on a black top in the middle of the summer. I'm like, luckily we had that because it was still just like pouring out of me.
You're so resilient when you're young too. It's like, I don't even need water, you don't even think about some of the like little stuff as an adult you would basically be.
It's like sports back in the day, right? It was like, we went to the point of dehydration at about every sport. If you drink water, you're a sissy.
Right.
It's like
that's
every 10 minutes a water break. Right.
100%. That's when you're starting to get old, is when you start thinking about that shit.
Yeah. Which is, I don't have any like ill feelings about you shouldn't be drinking water nowadays. It's just funny, like the shift from, water is for being soft, and now it's like if you don't drink water, you die. It's like, okay, so maybe we were towing the line back then. a little bit.
Amazing. I mean, it's fascinating. Some of the things that we did as kids, and we're still alive, or we're not in prison right now. It's amazing.
Oh my God.
It's a miracle. It's a mini
The
miracle.
last free generation, before we got to go through high school basically without social media, on our phones, which was pretty much the last of a dying breed.
I agree, man.
Happy about that. But
same.
It's for Halloween is one of my favorite holidays because it's just, first off, I love the TV. So I love watching anything that's Halloween related on television, whether that's goofy, whether that's, scary. I just like the TV during this time of year. And then also just like I love when people come up with just outrageous creative costumes. They just you let your flag fly, let it go. And when you see people with like a really creative one, especially here in New York, I'm like, yeah, you guys win today, and I love that. To do that. I was telling my wife, I was like, if I was actually dressing up this year, I probably would have made it like so. This would sound so like appropriate now that I'm saying is like I would make like a Midjourney like UX UI window and just have like the center cut out where the photo was, and probably make the prompt like "big dumb idiot," and it's like me holding my face.
Because you would have went viral with that, bro.
I try. I try every once in a while, but that was too. It's like low hanging fruit.
Yeah, it is.
It's almost too easy.
Okay, last thing before we get into the meat here. I've had this idea, and I think maybe you should execute it.
All right.
So the kids for Halloween, and I was thinking this would be the perfect costume for when they're like 2, right? Like they're walking, but they're still like a little unstable, right?
Uh-huh.
Dress them up as like a senior citizen, like in a retirement home where they've got, like they're dressed up as an old person and they've got the little wheelie, like the little cart thing with the tennis balls on the bottom, because I just feel like that would be perfect. And I wanted to do that with the girls and I got outruled on it. And now I feel like, hey, I maybe could do this at age 4, but then it's not going to be as funny, right? Because they're going to be a little bit bigger and they're a little bit more stable with walking now. You get that at about 2, between 2 and 3, man, that's like the perfect time.
Yes. There's all the classic costumes that we talked about. Like I remember being like an old lady, like there used to be like a thing. Like that was like a funny thing for kids. Same way with the ghost. When you cut the holes in the sheets, to me, epic costume. Still classic. On the immaculate, like if there's a Mount Rushmore of costumes, sheets with the holes in them, top 5, top 4, easy.
Yeah, skeleton bones, going back to the Karate Kid.
Yep,
sort of costume.
All that stuff. It's like what's 100%. Old is new again, and what's old is cool again.
That's right. Just wait long enough, it'll come back.
It will.
So
I love it.
Let's get into editor and depth control net via Retexture with Midjourney. Obviously, a lot has changed with this. This is a big drop that we've kind of been looking forward to, some kind of big drop for a while now. I mean, months. Mm-hmm. So I think this brings, always that exciting element of what does this feature do and how can I use it, and maybe what are all the different ways that we can use it. So we're going to get into that. You brought up a great point before we started the show, just in talking about it, right? Which is just reminder, this is only available, at least currently, for, and help me out here if I missed this, I think it's 10,000 plus image generations. You're on an annual plan, or you've been using Midjourney for 12 plus months. Is that right? Did I get that right?
That is correct. The point there is, of course, is to just, it's still beta. Let's be honest. Like it still has its bugs. It's still not perfect. It's a good feature, but also they're just letting it. They're failing with their most diehard users, right? If there is a fail, and I'm not saying it's a fail, it's just like if they are going to have like fails and bugs and glitches, they're doing it with the people that really don't care.
Yeah, like, they're not gonna churn because that doesn't work the way I thought it was gonna work right away.
Yeah. Like me. Like I personally, that's how I feel about it. I'm just like, cool. Like, thank you. Awesome. I like having the external editor feature. I like the retexture feature. It's not like I'm using it on every single image or like, I'm like totally obsessed with it. But, I think I am always open to the change, and I'm always a little bit biased when things change. I don't necessarily haven't used it for long enough yet to really like love it. Same way with SRF codes, where I was like, this is kind of whatever. And then I grew to love it over time. So maybe that's how I'll feel about this. I don't know. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, as we're recording this, right? Like it's been live for a week and a half, not even 2 weeks yet. I believe. We dive into this stuff pretty quickly. We try to play with it as much as we can, especially for stuff like this, so we can share what we've learned. I think initially I wasn't really sure how much the external image editor was going to be something I was interested in, but I think I've slowly uncovered like use cases that sound really appealing, especially for like business client work for sure. And then I think the retexturing aspect, that depth control, and that just feels like a totally net new thing that Midjourney really hasn't had yet. And so I think if anything, I've been probably messing around with that a little bit more. Let's just kind of let's show people where this is at too while we're talking about it. Let me bring this up. For those like that may not have access to this too, maybe you're seeing this for the first time. So there's this new panel here, or new tab called Edit on the side. And you and I were talking about this, Rory, but it's like, it just kind of feels a little bit clunky that things are kind of compartmentalized over here. I know there are some good things about that kind of being separated, but at the same time, you've got this editor feature. You don't have a choice between subtle and creative. You've just got this button here. You can also just download the image here. But if you don't upscale these, the only way you can access these is back in this edit folder. They're not going to show up in your organized folder until you've upscaled them, right? So that's just one thing that I noticed like as soon as I jumped in here. Also, this tab thing I think really threw me off at first too.
Yes.
Right? Because like when you're first getting into it and you're just like, okay, things have changed. Let me get my bearings. Like let me get my equilibrium here. Like I struggled with like knowing the difference between these two. And then also I would sometimes have the edit tab open, but we want to be doing the retexture, right? So like just kind of getting that confusion going back and forth. I do love this thing here with the suggest prompt.
Yeah, I was going to mention that.
Like
brand new.
Saves a lot of time. Like especially if I'm bringing in that external image and I'm just like, I don't really want to decode what this is here. Like let me just get a version, like a default version that I can just kind of throw in. So I'll go ahead and click this and it should change. And then I can adjust it, right? Because that just kind of alleviates some of the pressure of like trying to come up with a prompt. But then I can say, okay, what's important here that I'm trying to maintain? And then what are the things that maybe I'm editing or wiping out that I want to infuse into the prompt?
And this is one of the things that felt like it was a little bit under highlighted. Like it was like, okay, well, we created the describe feature in the edit panel, but we don't have that describe feature on the website at the same level, which is interesting.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I'm, again, from a UX UI standpoint, right? Like we're micro dissecting here on this stuff. Like I took a day and now I know how everything works, but like from a beginning standpoint, it's just like a little bit weird back and forth. And then also on the right is where like your images generate, on that right-hand panel. But then if you go into another one, they're not there. They're it's like its own separate project. So it's actually, it's not a bad feature. It just feels like, it feels a little bit clunky to navigate when you're in the edit tab itself.
Yes.
I think this will all like get ironed out very easily. Like they'll make simple fixes. They'll do, whatever testing they need to do to figure that out. But really, I think it's been, just because it's new, we're like, huh? It's kind of like when that reframe window came up or whatever, and it was like, why is Remix, Zoom and whatever all housed in this one thing now? That one didn't make much sense to me. But they kind of scrapped that, I feel like. they just like, we'll put that in the editor. Which is it
felt like one of those like middle steps between ultimately what they have now. I agree. Yeah, that was also kind of a little bit clunky at first. This one to me feels like the clunkiest right now. I do like that. Yeah, there are some like pros of it being in its own space, but I don't think the UX really accomplishes, like it doesn't really extract the true value out of what they're trying to do with it yet. So again, to your point, I think that's why they released this more or less like in these alpha or beta perspectives and then roll it out to the masses. I think there's some refinement there. Like this is what happens when you initially click on it. You can take an image URL, so similar to Discord right back in the day. Just right-click an image, take that address. You can do it that way, or you can take any image from your computer, and then that's going to pop up right here, right? So external image editor, a lot to kind of get into with that, dude, because honestly, we've been talking here and there, and a lot of people love to talk about sort of the whole, copyright, legality pieces of this, and I don't really want to go too far into that. But the point I want to bring up is when you bring in an image that's not yours, and then you're painting, you're creating a net new asset.
Yeah.
And it's a hybrid of AI and real imagery, right? Authentic imagery. And so what dynamics does that bring to the table now, right? Like, how does that change the landscape of, what could potentially be these legal guidelines and implication? I mean, because that to me is like a huge curveball in this too. Is just like, we haven't seen that before, right? Like that possibility now changes a lot of things too.
And it's interesting, right? I'm sure you don't see many people, even though Adobe's had this sort of same structure. Like, you don't see many people complaining about what Adobe does with generative fill, like, with editing small details, or if you're trying to extend an image, right? Like, you have it in 9:16 or something, a portrait style, and you want to make it landscape. Like, is anyone really getting that upset about it when you're doing it? Like, I haven't seen much blowback on that. So now that you can do that in Midjourney, it's like, okay, well, Midjourney bad, Photoshop whatever, even though it is what it is. But I think it's the one thing that everyone should note. This probably will change as we go along. I don't know about you, but I've had a ton of issues uploading images from my desktop. Like, pictures of me get flagged all the time and I can't generate. I don't know why. So it's not even like I'm taking, a picture of Elon Musk and putting it in there and being like, can you help me edit this? It's like a picture of a stupid my face, and it's just like, no, we can't do that. That's not, that doesn't meet our policy guidelines, which the content moderation has gotten much stronger on the editor side for anyone who's trying to do this. So, if you think you can do a lot of things right now, I've had more issues than not. I've had less issues bringing it in through image URL than I have uploading locally from my computer. So that I don't know if that's everyone or that's just me. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. I think that's something to play around with, guys, for sure. The other part of this that kind of irks me, bro, is this. Like, why aren't these just, water falling down?
Wait, why don't you have that? Because I have that. I have the waterfall. Yeah.
Shut your mouth.
Do you have like a search filter on right now or no?
No.
All right, that's weird. Because let me show. Hold on.
Let me see if it's this. No, wait. There it is.
There it is.
Okay. You're right. Okay. Hey, look. Hey, guys, we are discovering stuff on this call, baby. Okay. So this is that. Now that's interesting because one of the ways that I sort through stuff in my organization or archive is we've talked about this. I like to upscale images that I like. That way, if I use it, it's already there. Right. And it's just like a way for me to like organize things a little bit in terms of like, hey, these images are okay versus these are the images that I like. Yeah. And so I had this checked. Nothing shows up here, even though I have upscaled images in here.
Yes.
Right. So it's treating those differently. So I think that's a brand new discovery for me. That makes a lot of sense.
And it does this by job or by project, however you want to call it. So when you scroll down, right, like if you uploaded a different image, it's going to be a different project, which I like this feature. This is nice. This feels like like the organized side of it to me. If you're generating like hundreds of images in the editor or like hundreds of retextures, it's going to get kind of, lost in here. But that's a little bit of a nice, like once I figured that out, I was like, oh, because I didn't know how to. It wasn't relatively available. Like if you go to just like this like into an image, right? Like go like it's where it says recent. Like let's just click on like one of the images, right? When I would get to here, I'd be like, how do I get back to that? It's up in the right corner where it says view all, right?
Yeah.
That's the one that takes you back here. Like that. This is me being stupid and not figuring that out for about 25 minutes while I was on here, and like that would have helped me. It's like being like, how do we get back to see what else I've done? So guys, we are mortal, and we are. Idiots sometimes.
We're very mortal. We are. I think we learned that with you stepping on that nail, brother.
I still, we're finally. I think we're finally out of the woods. I think it has officially closed up. I do not have a hole in my foot.
Let's
anymore.
go.
So, regenerative foot over here. But that's this editor thing. The one thing that I think is nice is that you have this tracking. Right, like it's good to have these projects and tracked because personally I would forget to be like, oh, I like this image, let me upscale it because you have to do it manually in the bottom left corner, right? Like it's not just like a button that says like upscale this one.
Yep.
The other thing is it doesn't upscale it raw, right? Like it actually takes whatever your edit is and then it uses the upscaler to put it into your create page. So you're getting an upscaled image out of this no matter what. Like you don't have an option. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's just like know that because if you're on relax mode, I know upscale takes a little bit longer. I personally, I hit relax mode sort of settings, I just buy more because I just can't do it.
Oh, it's brutal. Yeah. That's a great point, guys. So,
Yeah, I hate to sound like that, but it sometimes
you
I
almost
need stuff
got to
for
be
projects, right?
You almost got to be in fast mode for that. I mean, unless you have the time to wait, because this does take a bit longer than your typical generations, for sure.
Yeah, so
At least right
curating,
now. Yep.
curating too, right? Be a little bit more selective, right? If you don't want to burn through a ton of fast hours and waiting for creative upscales, right? Like that sometimes might be when you're at, instead of just like having to look at every single one individually. Like, I like all of these upscale, like
Yep.
curate in terms of what actually looks good. But how have you been from like the editor standpoint?
Yeah.
Like, how have you been liking what it's been able to do, or are you like kind of like whatever?
Yeah, I think so. Like, it's a good first step. I mean, just
Yeah.
like anything else, I would expect it to improve. I know we're going to get into like different use cases and all that. I think one of the things that has opened my eyes is really like thinking about this from like almost like a client perspective. I'll give you a great example of this, right? So it's like I can take, I think I took this was the original image. And then what I did was like, so this is for a client that does interior design, but they have decor items like floor registers, and they're showcasing these in different style rooms, right? And they're showcasing these products in rooms in different capacities and different camera angles, different lighting, different times of the year, whatever it may be. This feature, I think, is a game changer because I can take this image and then I can say, hey, like, look, client, what kind of styles are you interested in changing this to? So like modern coastal, we've got farmhouse, like masculine, and basically, you're utilizing this to then create all these amazing scenes through it. And that to me has been one of these things where I'm just like, damn, like this does change the game. There's like sort of this progression with any of these new features where you and I were like a little skeptical. Then there's like a few things that you figure out and you're just like, okay, this is pretty good for that. And then over time, either by your own learning and problem solving or through like curation of other people sharing their stuff, you're just like, oh, didn't even think about that use case, right?
Yeah.
But like this has been amazing for me because it's like, hey, look, client, if you've got assets that you already have, like let's take an image of the stuff that you already have and let's just turn that into net news, right? Like same living, like let me go into actually the upscales for this. And so this is the same room, right? Just in different styles. Okay. And, just like that alone is just like, wow, you can just do so many things with that because if they've got approved images already and they've like a certain composition or a certain camera angle, we could go on forever with this stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's awesome. I also like have another example here where she was just showing me something in terms of like a floor register, right? Like one of these air vents. And this isn't the actual photo that she gave me. I'll have to go back to that. But essentially what I did was I just took a screenshot, from my computer while she was showing it to me. And then all of a sudden I could just put that in the external image generator, right? And then change out certain things, whether that be, here, let's go in here. I think this was maybe the original image. And so when you think about like even with this, I could take an existing image that's been approved on the client side. We just want a different curtain. We just want different weather scenes outside. We want a different plant here. We want a rug here. Like if you've got a camera angle that shows your product really well, boom, that's all you need.
Build around it.
Yeah. So like really you're almost curating great compositions and great camera angles too, which, we get a little nerdy with this stuff, but like from my perspective, I was like, that's pretty big. Same with even the lighting. Like if you got certain lighting conditions that you like, I mean, that's great. Like if you've got something that's stellar, keep the same lighting conditions and just change elements around it. So this adds sort of like a whole new canvas for like creative thinking about how you're going to do some of that stuff. And then obviously the component of this also maybe eliminates a couple other things that you would maybe take into another program like Photoshop. So
Yeah. There's, some subtleties with it that are really nice. And I think, that being one of them is just something simple, like a simple use case like this, which the only problem I think, and I don't know if we've mentioned this, probably have, is like when you take things into Photoshop, right? Like the Photoshop generator is not as good as the Midjourney generator. So if you're trying to do larger details, you can tell there's a difference. Like you can just see it.
Yeah,
So,
that's a great point, man.
Yeah.
It's almost like there's no middle ground yet. Like because Midjourney does a better job, but they're not as good at painting some of the stuff in there that you need to add. Whereas Photoshop's much better at that, but at the same time, like to your point, it's that exact conundrum that we get into right now. So there's sort of like no perfect or ideal balance as it stands right now. But
because Photoshop, I'm never really, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are doing this differently, but I'm not necessarily adding a lot in Photoshop. It's more like fine tuning. It's taking stuff out. It's like blending different elements. It's like feathering in a way that like I just don't want to sit there and feather, like, you know what I mean? So it's a little bit different. Like here you can actually add and potentially get some good stuff depending on how you add it. I definitely want to talk about that too once we get into it, like adding and how to like think about that, because I personally, if you were just to highlight the corner, most of the time I'd say rug, it's just like you get 3 options that have no rug and maybe 1 option that does. Like, and it's just like, that's not, I want a rug there. You know, like that's kind of where I get a little bit upset with it, because the adding feature just, it seems like it doesn't listen to you that well. Or if it does, it's very low percentage. But there's ways around that. Not around it, more sort of like to guide it. I've been using a lot of image referencing and style referencing there to like make that work. But it's kind of, like I said, still beta. Like it still needs to get its kinks ironed out. But some of this, like this use case in specific, is perfect for it.
you know what I'm curious about too? Like, I don't know if you've messed around with this yet. This is just another use case that I'm thinking of, but like taking an existing real world image like this, and this was again just like a screenshot, so it's not super high res. Let me just zoom out and do like a 2x, and now I'm just creating a whole net new asset here.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty wild. This one I probably don't want to infuse that different style. Let me just kind of like leave this as is, and we'll take these out. Let's make sure we're on fast so we can actually cover this on the pod here. But like, you know what I mean? Like you could create a whole scene doing this too, right? Like which before you could do with the zoom out in Midjourney, but again, it was based on a Midjourney image. Now, right? You're starting with an actual real image, and then you're fusing, you're making a hybrid image. I'm curious as to the quality of that even, right?
It's been pretty good at matching style and texture. Like this one, for example, the scale got messed up, right? Like on that couch, for example, like that makes that vent look like it's like 3 feet long, right? It's really not that big.
Great point, yeah.
But like it's done for me like a fairly good job at matching like aesthetic, like when you're scaling it, right, and like bringing it more, like bringing a lot of the photo details into the expandable pieces of it that haven't been, doesn't know how to create essentially until it's get this reference image. So to me, that's been pretty good.
Hey Rory, can we add the photography grid here, the compositional grid?
That would be nice.
Great.
That
would be great. Yeah, that'd be dope. Wouldn't be hard. But yeah, I think you're right. Like that's always been something that's kind of been maybe a little bit frustrating with the zoom out feature, the scale.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you have to do it in like such a step-by-step process, because I don't think it understands from that standpoint. Again, like the depth and perspective, it's a lot. See, now this looks a little bit better, right? Like now it looks like it fits a little bit more. The size of the plant and the size of the couch looks more like a bench instead of a couch. So look at the texture of the wall and the colors of the wall and the actual, floorboards that extended. We have actually the light that comes in. You have the light painting from the window, which is on the floor now, which kind of matches, which is, to me, that stuff's the craziest when it notices things like that and does it, which is so, it seems simple, but at the end of the day, that's kind of hard.
Yeah, but like this is really cool. I think like also, depending on who you're working with, like I know for this particular client with the, like she's proficient in Photoshop, so she can easily composite their own actual product in here too. So I'm more or less just trying to get those compositions right, angles right, and the sizes right, But
because now where I find it to be hard, right? Like as if you wanted to go in there and put like an end table between there and the wall, like an end table between the couch and the wall.
Here.
Yeah, like right in there somewhere, like an end table with like a plant on it or something, or a lamp or whatever. That's where I find it to be very, very tricky to get exactly what you're looking for, especially in a smaller space. If it's like half the size of the image that you're highlighting, then yes, it tends to work well with additions. But really when it's a smaller feature, that's where I've been having majority of my problems with it.
Yeah, let's see what we get here. I think, yeah, to your point, you're spot on here. This is, I think, an area where this can become a lot more consistent, both in the proportions, but not having to re-roll and getting things a little bit more accurate in terms of what you're wanting here. And again, like, how does this roll into the capabilities that we get with 3D, right? Like,
Yeah.
does that solve this? I have no idea, but
That
I'm
didn't
not
add
seeing
it.
no end table. So like maybe
Yeah.
what I would do just to try something else is put either a different word here. Like maybe I just put small wooden end table, like just to give it a little bit more oomph, like just to see if that works. This kind of goes back to some of those initial prompt struggles from the beginning days, right, too, where it's like, if it's not picking up a certain word and you've run it a couple times, maybe you just need a different synonym. But also, this is kind of like one of those functionalities that's not consistent. So
This is the problem that I've been running into and I ran into with Editor a lot. So what I've been doing here is sometimes it's not as simple like, oh, I can just change the text prompt. Like sometimes I have to go back out of the editor. I'll take this image as like a style reference, and then I'll go and create like image of an end table, and then I'll bring that back in as an image reference, if that makes sense.
Hey, there you go. Yep. Yep.
I was trying to do this with a car the other day, and I couldn't get like little features. Like I want to change like the the size of the style of the grill, and it would just like not do anything. So I'm like, all right, let me go create a grill that I like and plug it in as an image reference, and then like it'll generate. So it works really well that way. Like forcing it in, it's like do this.
See, like that. I like that
Yeah.
idea for sure.
Yeah. And I can show that so people can maybe comprehend a little bit more of what I'm saying. But this to me is like exactly what I was saying before. Like it's a perfect example. Glad that we like showed it. Is that like these small edits, like adding things? Like if you wanted to erase that plan, I bet it's easier than adding it. You know what I mean?
100%. 100%.
Right? Like that's kind of where the faults are, but that's where Midjourney just needs a little help.
I'm going to take this. Let's bring this over here really quick. And this is where it's like, okay, maybe to really get this right, you're going to need to take it in here and add the end table. You know what I mean?
Right.
And in fact, let me give it a little bit more room to work with, and we'll just put chic wooden end table.
I still don't know how to prompt Jenner to fill the right way to get what I want.
I don't know that I know either. I think, but I do think we're probably doing it right. It's just not there. Like there's a lot of times where I'm really not getting what I'm wanting.
Yeah. See, like it added it. Is it perfect? No, but you can tell it's like a different. Maybe the style match.
Like maybe that one feels closer. Yeah. But isn't that part of one of the features with Photoshop Beta? You know, with matching the color grading.
Yeah. Try screenshotting that like corner, right? Like not the whole image, just the corner with the end table and the end of the couch and everything like that. Like just a quick screenshot.
Yep.
So that we can take that in and use that as an image reference and see if it actually adds it. So we want to take that end table in.
I just get the focus here. Okay. Now let's bounce over here.
Yeah. And then if you click on you can go right to the first, like the image. If you go into your little navigation side on the right there, this is one thing that I've been finding is if you go to the image on the left, it just like brings the edit back up.
Yep. And then I could even just erase this, or I'm sorry, let's restore this, right?
Yeah.
Just for this example. And then what we're saying is adding in an image reference, correct?
So you just pull that screenshot in.
Here. Boom. Let's take this. Let's just put wood in. Let's just further describe it. I'm even wondering if we even need this full prompt, right? Like just going back to
take it out.
What's the best way, right? Like this kind of goes back to that whole thing where sometimes it works better the other way or not. But let's do this. Let's play around with image weight. Let's run some permutations on that.
Can you do that? Because I don't
know.
Let's
try.
I've had a bunch of fails on this one when I tried to use permutations. Yeah.
I think you're right. I think I tried that as well. Yep, there's an error right there. It's giving me. Let me see. Image weight should be a number. Yeah, that is a number. So we got to run them as separate jobs. So let's do this. Let's do this, and then let's just see what 3 does. I'm curious. So when we talk about experimenting, these are like I think the things that you and I do a lot. It's just like, well, what's going to work? Like, is this going to work? And then does it work better with like a little bit of a lower weight? Right? Because counterintuitively, sometimes it does.
Yeah. So there we go.
right? And
Right.
so now you've got 2 of the 4 here with 1, to your point. Here's image weight 2, doesn't get any better. Now you've got 1 of the 4, and it looks like image with image weight 3.
So weird.
You don't have any.
So weird.
So you see what we're talking about here? Like, this is why
People would say highlight more of the space, right? Like,
think
I get
so?
that, but then it also starts to change. It changes more of the image aesthetic, right? Like, sometimes you just want, like what you just did in Photoshop was like a little precise edit, and we're splitting hairs here, but just showing like this. I'm sure someone else has gone through this process and thought the same exact thing.
this is a great example, though. Let's try it one more time. To your point, let's get an answer for that, because this time we gave it a lot more breathing room, and let's see. Because hey, if it's 1 not working, well, here we go. Looks like it's putting it in here. I think you're right, sir.
Sometimes, I mean, this is just I played around with editor a lot, not the external one, but the internal one.
So now, though, some of the proportions aren't. It's bigger. It's
Yeah.
not. That's odd.
Right. So it's like not an exact science.
See? And yeah, so you can make a point either way. Maybe you don't get it as much, but maybe like the proportional size of it maybe fits better when you've given it a little bit less room.
Yeah.
Less consistency. Here you've got it in every single image, no matter what, but it's too big.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like one of those like fun fails of where we're at with this tech right now, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where it's just like a little bit exploratory and experimental, but
that for example, right? Like that
was a good one.
That image reference piece. Like I would, if anyone is having trouble, just like use it that way, because I've been doing it and it's been working a lot. Not perfect, of course, but like if you need to get something in there and it's not working, go and either create an image outside of the editor and then bring it in as an image reference, or like, 'cause I was trying to do this with tires the other day. Like I guess the tires were too small in the car. I just never changed them, like the rims. So I just created an image of a rim that I was thinking, and I put it in there as an image reference. Then like bang, there it is. It generates on as the rim I'm thinking. So it's I think here is where using your image, style, character, all those reference tools comes in.
yeah.
Heavily, because it can really influence the output in the editor piece. So
Yep, 100%. Like edit would be really great. Yeah, I think for that image reference piece, whereas like retexture would be really great for the style reference piece. Style reference, style codes, right?
let me pull this one up so I'll show you. I did a post on this the other day, but it's kind of a good example of how that whole thing kind of came together. All right, so I was just playing around with Elon's robo-taxi. If I go back down to the beginning of this where no edits were made. So yeah, obviously it started with the 3D rendering of the car, flexed it out a little bit, right? Just gave it a little bit more breathing room on the sides to get it into. Now we're taking a long time to show these.
Yeah, what's up with that? Come on.
I don't know.
Come on, internet.
Editor's been glitchy for me, man. Okay, when we started, right, just had this, wanted to add some stuff. Great. Now I have some different, I have some different expanded on the outside. Now I wanted to change the tires here, right? But I was really looking for something that wasn't like this. It kept giving me things like this that were kind of boring and weird. So with this, I had to go a little bit more detailed on the prompt to get something I was looking for. Then with, I'm like, I want to change the front, right? This here, not doing anything. Right, like it's not really changing the front that much from where we were here. It's like kind of boring on the fender. So I had to throw in a little bit of. Is this not going to show? This is weird. Sorry, for whatever reason, this stuff wasn't showing up. So like adding a spoiler on a car for whatever reason is just really hard. Like it doesn't.
Yeah.
It like never comes up. So like you just see it. It's like kind of coming up here. But the only reason is because I added this image reference of a spoiler. Before that, it was kind of just like...
Maybe you got something that didn't look realistic kind of thing?
Yes, exactly. So I had to add like the image reference of the spoiler to get there. Same thing with the engine blower here. Like I can just add, like when I was just trying to add without anything, like you just see the engine just changing. I'm like black carbon fiber hood. Like nothing is happening here, right? Like nothing is changing. Even when I'm highlighting, like that's the highlight, right? black carbon fiber hood. I wanted to change the hood. That's a fairly decent size area, just not doing it. Right? So
Got it. So you're thinking, and I know you were doing a lot of this too with original original editor, very region, whatever the hell you want to call it, because it changed names 5 times.
yeah.
But you were already juicing it with the ads through image weighting anyway.
Yeah. This was the, again, then I'm like, screw it. If I can't get a carbon fiber hood, I'll put like this, this engine blower in. So we're using like an image like this of like an engine blower coming out because I wanted to give it that reference. So I'll kind of highlight the area. And then, we start to get it, right? Like that, listen to it. Like for whatever, because I'm starting to add these image references. I'm going to see if I have more here.
This is good. I mean, so, if, just as a recap, what we're showing, if you're having trouble adding things into when you're editing an image weight can be your friend. Yep. Image weight can be your friend in Tool. You can obviously always take it outside of Tool with something like Photoshop. But if you're trying to do it in Tool, this has been a struggle, right? Like even before this, the external, I mean, to get things put in, right? Because you could use Remix, but then it's also going to change parts of the image, even if you did it subtly. So getting those things to add versus change were hard. To get things to change wasn't hard, or replace or delete even, but to add was sort of the tricky part. So I think that's a really good tactical idea that you got there, and I know you've been using that before, but just want to highlight that because if you're struggling with that, definitely want to use that.
And it's often just times creating, like this image, I created it specifically for this. Like I wanted like a really clean, sleek, like looking fender, right? So then I could put it in here and get different, options that look more like it. Did it come out exactly as it is? No, but it gave me better options, right? If I go down to, all right, here, so headlights, right? I went and generated this image of the headlights is what I'm kind of looking for, right? And it started to change the headlights to be more of kind of like this weird sort of like technical style of headlight versus like the standard headlight that's there. So maybe not the perfect example because this is kind of glitching out on me as we show it. But, how do I just guide the tool to give me what I want instead of like endlessly prompting it?
Yep.
So that's the whole ethos behind that of my failed visual experiment there to show that consistently because it's glitching out on me. But,
it is fascinating to see where, I guess, prompting will be 12 months from now. I think I have this feeling, and this was like my gut feeling with prompting in general. Like, yes, it's a skill, but I think it's a skill temporarily in its current format because it's going to continue to evolve. The ability, and for example, in other words, what I mean is it took a lot of energy to text prompt in the early days of Midjourney. You didn't have all these other features that could either more efficiently or more successfully interpret what's in your brain to what the output that you're trying to get is. And so I think like text prompting in a way has evolved quite a bit, but I also think like text prompting, is that a long-term thing in general? It's a little bit cumbersome, like not to sound like a lazy person here. We're all talking relative to 2024, 2025 and where we're at with tech. But you know what I mean? Like to prompt, especially like when you're using things like LLMs, like ChatGPT or Claude, right? Like to get good results, you do have to provide a lot of context. You do have to like be very clear and thorough in like what you're wanting with that prompt in order to get better results. And that's one of the struggles right now is just like how much effort and time that takes to then get to the end result that you desire. So I think like just text prompting in general is kind of like a meta thought, but it's evolved. It's gotten easier in some ways. And I think maybe text prompting in general is like just a temporary thing. Like it's going to eventually not be text at all.
Yeah, it's a skill that I'm happy that I have. Like, because it works on the video generators, it works across like a lot of other tools. It's just like how to talk to the robot like it needs to be talked to get what you want out of it. So, I still find myself defaulting to that because it still feels like the most controllable when it comes to it. I do like having this ability to use all these different types of image references, whether that's the image reference, character reference, style reference, playing with all those, SREF features and all the other things because it's cool, right? Because that's one thing if we're going to do this. If I'm sure everyone has played around with this by now, is you can also like add that sref code into your retextures. You can add it into your edits, and it can make different little. If you like just a piece of something, right? You don't have to have the whole image be an sref code. Like maybe you want the that in that that Tesla example. Maybe I wanted the background or like the the studio to be more in a style of an SREF code, right? Like how do I highlight that background, or I want a painting on the wall and use an SREF code and plug it in there as the edit, right? So it's just a playbox, sandbox. You can do whatever you want, and there's a million things that we can do. It comes down to like what are you going to use it for? Like I'm using it right now also to sort of bring back to life some older stuff.
Yeah, which I think you brought up like at the beginning of the
Yeah.
call, like before we jumped on here to hit record, and I thought that was like another great idea. That there are so many use cases, and this is still so new that I think, right, you have to go in and experiment to unlock some yourself, and then also like look around and see what other people are sharing and like talking to you. And I'm just like, okay, that's another idea. Wouldn't even thought about that, right? Like, but
Yeah.
absolutely.
One thing I have noticed, let me bring this back up. I don't know if anyone else is noticing this. One thing I have noticed is text has gotten easier in editor, like, or gotten better, like over. I don't use text a lot in Midjourney, but I know that this one actually got better if I go to find some of these older projects here that I was doing with text. When I was editing these images, right, I started with like this guy, right, it was funny, goofy, fat man. I added the T-Rex to the image just to like make it a little bit more ridiculous, and then I wanted to add just like a text bubble, right, something stupid. Like this stuff came out way cleaner than it normally does. Like I think because it's, white speech bubble with the words roar inside of it, like in comic book font. Like there's nothing else it's focused on generating other than the text.
I was going to say, did you try that outside of speech bubble and comic book font? Because I think those, like, I guess what I would want to know experimentally, I feel like that could also be a component of why they're better, because like speech bubble, that's already taking into account like this nice little holding category for displaying text, like, does that improve the ability there? Like it might. I like, my gut feeling is it is, but
so it does come up 2 out of 4, right? We have 1, 2 with an extra little N on the W there. 3 comes up here, 4. I think this was just a good use case for like how it would work. Now, the other thing that was interesting was I took that and I just added a style reference code to it if my computer's not going to blow up here. There we go. Which was so random. I mean, you get some funny stuff with this, but like, it's all relative. I've noticed this a lot in the edits and the retextures. You get the face that is a little bit blurry, depending on what it says. This one totally got rid of the words. This one, it kind of messed up, but regardless, this one's kind of like nightmare fuel using codes.
Well, hey, but this reminds me of one other thing that we talked about, not on the pod, but just like as this rolled out, you and I were talking about it, is like the retexturing piece feels like a little bit lower fidelity with the results that it gives you back. It just feels a little bit blurry in some ways.
Kind of with people more than anything else. Like, when I've done it with objects, it hasn't seemed as bad.
Okay.
Like when I'm doing like the living room stuff, like, like, oh, let's retexture this and like restylize the living room, like take it from sketch to lifestyle. And then, lifestyle to let's change up the style reference code and make it all these different things. Like I've found that one's not as extreme as faces. Like, it's like back to blurry face days if anything's in the midground or the background when retexturing. But I think the foreground seems to pick up on pretty well. But it's been
I like that example, man. Like while we're in the spirit of showing things, I'll show one last example that I think would be relevant for this, which is quickness in terms of like retexturizing something like icons, for example, right? Like before, these had to be completely net new things, and now it's like, okay, I had this one that was made out of bone, and now I turned it into stone. You know what I mean? Like that feels pretty awesome because you could create your own asset set of icons and essentially tailor those to any texture you want based on the brand or the usage or whatever it is, right? Like that's pretty dope. Before, you couldn't get that same 1-for-1. Now you can get essentially a 1-for-1, right? When it comes to that stuff. So that's an unlock, because if you don't have this exact image, but you just like the texture of something like this, okay, like I can match a whole scene or a campaign. Let's just say a landing page, and it's got some sort of tie into like the old days, or like this is dead or this is going extinct. Now I can create this creative campaign of assets on the fly really, really quickly.
The other thing I've liked in retexture too, which is pretty pretty simple use case for it is if you like, sometimes I forget to put Q2 on my prompts when I want it in Q2, and I'm like, oh, I really like that image, but I do want that extra like quality texture.
Hey,
just
real quick question
it,
there.
boom, boom.
How much are you using Q2 right now?
Kind of a lot.
Are you?
Yeah. I think I
you
use
feel-
it less with close-ups of people's faces because it overdoes it. But
Do you feel that it because you remember when they sort of re-released, I guess, its presence of being there and the quality? Do you find that it's staying true to what they said about it veering a little bit from the prompt at all? Like, are you experiencing that or no?
most of the time I don't know if that's because I have my personalize on or not. So it's like a weird trying to figure it out if like actual personalize is screwing it up versus the quality. Because a lot of times I'll put quality on and personalize, and then I'm also like, if I have the stylize up, I'm like, I never know what's actually affecting it.
Yeah. Now there's too many things, too many variables
too
now.
many variables.
Yeah.
But I like having that control. The interesting thing with Q2 is whenever you have something that's like a very textured, like you want textures, you're prompting for textures, something like interior design, I would 100% use it every time. Where you have rugs, you have couches, you have throws, you have pillows, you have plants, you have walls. Like there's a lot of different textures going on there. They're all different, fabrics or different, physical things. Like that tends to like separate them a little bit. I've noticed that because sometimes it can look a little 3D rendery kind of that look when you're doing interior. So a lot of times that Q2 will dial up like the difference and the contrast between like a super thick fuzzy blanket and like a really smooth like leather couch. That's how I really like it for that. Also like outdoor and nature stuff because like it picks up the texture of like the dirts and like really the texture of the trees and all that other stuff that's around, or cracks in the concrete. Like those little things to me I like.
Going back to a previous episode we just did with the tokens, V-ray tracing. I love that one for dialing in. Yeah, V-ray tracing for dialing in a little bit of that texture in that regard too, maybe without sacrificing some stuff. I mean, again, it's hard to say, right? But so V-ray tracing is essentially like a rendering technique used in 3D.
Okay,
but it helps produce highly like realistic images by simulating like light behavior in some ways. So like it can do some of that, like a little bit of that elevation of the way like natural scenes might look, or those like indirect elements, like with materials and textures, lighting and shadows, stuff like that. So I like, that's another good one that I kind of forgot about, I kind of forgot about it.
Dude, that's why it's good that we go back to those every once in a while, because I drummed up a ton that I was like, oh yeah, okay. I forgot that this was good. Like I've forgotten about global illumination for a while. Like that one's still super good, has a lot of power.
We're gonna do another one on that. I think people like that one a lot. We'll circle back with another one of those because there are so many good ones. There's so many good ones.
Because you forget when you go down those rabbit holes that there was like times and places. Like I call it like prompt trends for myself, where it was like I just went on like these little like runs where it's like, this is what I used on every single prompt, and then like I forgot about it. Or I just stopped.
Yeah,
using
like
it.
one day you just stop, like you don't even realize it, and then 6 months have gone by, and you're just like, holy shit, forgot about that.
There was certain things that it was like it worked really well, and then I forget. Like the composition ones, I got to be honest, like I love those so much. Those vertical lines.
I know you do.
I forget to use them half the time because I'm not using it. It doesn't have to serve a purpose for what I'm trying to produce every once in a while. But then like I remember though, I'm like, oh, I should go back and use that. I should use layered composition because that one.
That could be another really cool feature that Midjourney eventually layers in, is like common token usage. Here are like your most commonly used tokens.
Yeah, I like that.
I don't know. That could be really cool.
I was just gonna say like this personalized. It's still kind of like a mystery to me how it works. It does look like it does generate how I like stuff, but sometimes I just like a little bit. It looks like they're coming out with that via office hours though. They're coming out with an individual personalization profile. So thank God for that. Maybe we'll get our style codes back.
I was just about to bring that up. That's going to be one of their next big updates, or like one of the next updates. I don't know if it's big. I mean, it depends on application and what it entails, but in terms of way that it described it, multiple personalization codes, I don't know. I'm just imagining that by possibly you have the ability to even curate those on the fly, almost like a training model, like a mini model kind of thing, Laura-ish. Or like maybe it's automatically algorithmically take into account, hey, for illustrative styles or this type of style, Drew prefers this. For this, Drew prefers that. Like, I don't know, but I am curious to see how that unfolds.
It'd be cool if we could just name it like we could with preferred option set and just like name it and just be like, oh, okay, like, like landscape for like landscape photography or like whatever you're trying to do. And, 3D for, 3D illustrative style, like whatever. That was just so helpful for remembering it. Because how am I supposed to remember B25, 73, 46? I mean, take it out. Rory, take it outside, get, copy, paste it, put it in a Notion doc, put it in your notes, save it this way. I'm like, whatever. I just want to fucking like type it every once in a while. I don't want to have 2 tabs open. But sorry.
And there was like, for those people that love the style codes too, I'm just thinking about this. Their whole thing was, hey, those could change. The style codes are likely to change when we get to V7. Mm-hmm. Well, V7's still a little bit away, but when that comes, what do you do with the style codes? I mean, now with something like this editor Retexture, you could essentially just take an image from V7 and put your style code on it, couldn't you? Could solve that problem, right? Like, I think a lot of people are thinking, oh man, well, that's going to suck. Like, what do we do with all this then? And maybe the only way to still use that would be to use older models, but maybe you just use the new model and then put the SREF or style code on top of it. That would be dope.
That would be dope. I haven't even thought about going to put like style code on like a V5.2 image and just see how it would work. I don't even know if you can, but I mean, now you can with the editor feature.
I don't. Yeah, before the editor, I don't think you could. I don't think you could before because I feel like I've tried that. But you're right. Now with that, changes it.
Getting crazy now.
We are getting crazy. Maybe like a little too crazy. Maybe like we need to shut this down. Actually, I know we both have busy afternoons here. I think we got in what we wanted to get in. We hit on the most important points for right now. I think Rory and I also talked about, look, as we go on and this feature evolves and we've gotten more and more use cases to take into account, we'll bring those to the table for you guys. We'll also, obviously bring on occasional guests that are using these things too and just kind of crowdsource these ideas for you. Outside of that, Rory, anything else you want to share before we dip?
Nope, too big of a feature not to talk about, so we had to highlight it. If we'll hopefully have, like Drew said, just like the more we use it and the more we're like forced to use it for certain projects, we'll kind of come up with new stuff. It's just the nature of it because we're using it all the time. If you have good ones or you've used it in a really creative way, drop it in the comments. Let us know.
There you go.
While you're liking and subscribing at the same time,
You went out of order today. You're supposed to say that for the end.
I wanted to get it in. We are ending it up, but
love it. Love it. Well, hey, brother, good to see you as always. Guys, we'll be back next week like we always are. We're going to find a way to record and we'll figure it out and we'll bring something great next week too. Thanks for joining us and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Like and subscribe. See ya.